Well, let's bring in now our military analyst, Sean Bell. I mean, Sean, a reminder that we're not far off 3 years since the war started, coming up in February next year. But what do you make of John Healey's remarks today on where the front line is and what its state is?
Yeah, I think it was fascinating what he was talking about. Most of the news before then has been dominated by storm shadows and nuclear war and the like. But actually, he talked about the pressure on the front line here. And I think what that dovetails quite with a lot of the information I'm hearing at the moment. There's almost a perfect storm that's happened where Ukraine decided to mount this audacious incursion into Russia itself in the Kursk region, which might have been, eased tension. But in fact, what it's done, it's split its limited resources. And ever since then, Russia's been on the front foot. And the danger is now that certainly some of the intelligence is suggesting that it's not just equipment that Ukraine needs, it's desperately running short of manpower. And normally you wouldn't admit this in public, you would get on with it. But the very fact that John Healey's now sitting and stating that in the House, which dovetails with some of the information we're getting. I think it's interesting going to the storm shadow point, though. There's been lots of talk about the storm shadow. I've been watching these video footage. You can't tell that it's storm shadow or not, but the harsh reality is we know that they're being used by the Ukrainian forces. Specifically, they're being used about that Kursk region, and I suspect that it's not only is the ATACMS, it's also the storm shadows and it's the anti-personnel mines. It's all an effort to try and ease the pressure on what is apparently a very, very under pressure Ukrainian front line at the moment.
Like you say, manpower is key, and we also hear that Russia lost or had injured 1,500 troops a day last month, which just gives you a sense of the scale of loss. Look, meanwhile, Ukraine does say Russia has been using these intercontinental ballistic missiles to target Dnipro, which I think it's not actually... There it is on the map there. Yeah. The US disputes that. Either way, what are these things?
Yeah, the trouble is with the name, intercontinental ballistic missile. It sounds big, it sounds intimidating, and generally they'd be used for delivering nuclear weapons. So there's an intimation that they're not at all. What they're actually is a delivery mechanism for an explosive charge. Any missile is. We're seeing some black and white footage from Dnipro of apparently the rocket going in. Most delivery systems, if it's a short distance, they fly through the air. The trouble is it's air's thick, you can't go very fast, therefore it's more likely to be shot down. If it's more than 100, 200 miles, you go ballistic, you go into space, the drag reduces, you can go a lot faster, hypersonics, before you come down. And if you go intercontinental, it's exactly the same, you just spend longer in space. So that just makes them really, really difficult to shoot down. I mean, practically, there's very limited supplies of the big missiles. There's no reason to use an intercontinental ballistic missile to hit. And if the Americans, that got a lot of sensors in space, say it wasn't, I'm inclined to believe them.